I want to start by telling you what I'm not going to tell you. A couple of episodes ago, I told you about the first time I prayed for a patient, February 9th. I told you I went home that night wrung out and woke up the next morning full of energy, wanting to do it again. And I told you what hit me at work the next day was the beginning of the hardest week of my life. Between February 10th and February 12th, some things happened that I'm still trying to understand. I'm not ready to walk you through all of those days, and I'd rather tell you that honestly than hand you something I haven't finished processing. But there is one piece of that week I do have to tell you, because without it, Friday the 13th won't make sense. Welcome back to the For His Glory podcast. I'm Solomon, and I'm honored you'd listen to my story. Before I go further, I want to be upfront with you. This episode is about a mental health crisis. If that's a hard place for you, please take care of yourself while you listen, and know there are resources in the description of this episode. I also want to say this plainly because I think somebody needs to hear it. I'm a physician. I've spent my whole adult life around medicine, and I still could not bring myself to accept help when I needed it. If that's where you are right now, I hope this helps. It started on Sunday night. My son Luke had a nightmare. I brought him into our bed, and I lay there awake the rest of the night. That was the first night of what became a week of thinner and thinner sleep. Monday was the day I prayed for that patient, and again that night I barely slept. And then it kept getting worse. An hour here, 2 hours there, stressors from work and from home converging all at once, and my body simply stopped being able to shut down. And I want to be careful here, because I don't want you to leave with the impression that I'm a man who comes apart without 8 hours of sleep. I'm not. I've gone long stretches on very little sleep for my entire adult life. All-nighters in college, all-nighters in medical school, the night before finals. And in residency, I worked night call at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, 2-week stretches of overnight shifts, trying to sleep during the daylight and never really managing it. Any physician listening knows exactly what I'm describing. That's simply the job. And it never once affected my functioning, not in college, not in medical school, not at Parkland. I could always still think, still work, still perform. But this was different. For whatever reason, this time, the sleep loss reached somewhere it had never reached before. If you've never been through severe sleep deprivation, I don't know how to explain what it does to you. Your thinking loosens, and things that would ordinarily bounce off of you go straight through you. And here's what made it so disorienting for me spiritually. The week before this, I had experienced the most intimate closeness with God I had ever known in my life. Hearing Him, being led by Him, praying for a patient because He asked me to. And now, only days later, I felt like I was coming apart. I could not reconcile those two things. How do you go from that to this? On Thursday evening, February 12th, my heart went back into atrial fibrillation with rapid ventricular response. If you heard the first episode, you know this territory. December was the first time. This was worse. My heart rate this time topped out in the 200s. My good friend Matt drove me to the emergency room, and I walked in with a plan because I'm a doctor and doctors always have a plan. I wanted to be admitted on an IV drip just like last time and let the medication bring down my heart rate slowly. But this time the medication was barely touching my heart rate. And both the ER physician and the hospitalist came to me and asked me to let them do an electrocardioversion to shock my heart back into rhythm. I looked over at Matt, and I shrugged. I gave in. They gave me something to put me under, and I woke up to them telling me that it had worked. I was back in a normal rhythm. Before they let me go, I asked the ER doctor for a couple of sleeping pills, just enough to get me through until I could see my own physician. He was kind about it, and he obliged. My rhythm had converted, so they discharged me home. I took the sleeping pill that night. It barely worked. I still could not sleep. On Friday, the next day, my sister Sheba had gotten on a plane in New York and flown to Milwaukee because she was worried about me. My wife Sharon was holding the entire world together, the kids, the house, all of it, while watching her husband unravel in front of her. And my friend Matt would not leave my side. I want you to picture that for a second because I didn't fully appreciate it at the time. A sister who dropped everything and crossed the country, a wife carrying an impossible load without putting it down, a friend who simply refused to go home. Matt sat with me for hours. He read the Bible to me. He cried with me. And over, gently, he kept asking me about going to Rogers Behavioral Health to see if they could at least help me sleep. And I kept saying no. I need to be honest about why. It wasn't that I thought it wouldn't help. It was that I didn't want people to think I was crazy. That was the whole thing. I was a physician, an associate professor. And underneath that, I had started to wonder whether I actually was losing my mind, which made me want to hide it even more. The fear of the label was stronger than the desire to get better. That afternoon, after a lot of tears, I prayed, and I meant every word of it. I told God that I would do anything for him, anything. I told him I would die for him. And in my mind and in my heart, I heard these words, "But you won't get help?" That was it. No thunder, no vision, just a question aimed exactly at the thing I was protecting. I had offered God my death and refused him my pride. So I got up and I went with Matt and Sharon and Sheba, and we drove to Rogers Behavioral Health in West Allis. They stayed with me while I was voluntarily admitted. I want to be clear about how little I understood in that moment. I thought I was going in for sleep medication. I genuinely believed they would give me something, I would finally sleep, and this would be over. When they took me in, they took my clothes, my shoes, my phone, even my Bible, not because of what was in it, but because of a ribbon bookmark sewn into the binding. On a behavioral health unit, that's considered a safety risk. I understood the reasoning completely. They walked me to my room. 2 mattresses, 2 desks, a bathroom with a partial door, no roommate yet, bare. And the first thing I felt standing in that room was a longing for my own bed, and I can still feel that in my chest when I think about it. Something was wrong with the heating and cooling unit, and the room was uncomfortably hot. A staff member told me she'd get someone to look at it, so I went to the common area to pass the time. In the common area, there were some chairs, a television, and people all around. So I sat there, and I did what I always do. I observed. And if I'm being honest with you, I felt completely out of place. There were people around me shouting at each other, people carrying visible burdens of mental illness, people in the grip of addiction. And there I was, a breast radiologist in hospital-issued clothes, thinking, what am I doing here? But underneath that, something else was happening, because I also felt a strange peace in that room. Every single person there needed help. Nobody was pretending, and the staff, I have to say this, the staff were some of the most loving, patient, kind people I have ever watched work. There was no contempt in that room, not from them. And I remember thinking, somewhere underneath the exhaustion, these people need help, and so do you, Solomon. You are no different than them. But there was one man I couldn't settle about. He was pacing, and his face was hard and angry, and something in my spirit told me not to be near him. I want to be careful how I say this because he was a patient too, carrying something I know nothing about. I'm only telling you what I felt in that moment, sleep-deprived and frightened. I did not feel safe around him. A nurse eventually came over to me. Her name was Maria. I told her what I had come for. I needed to sleep. I needed sleep medication. And she explained, kindly, that it was Friday evening and they were waiting on medication orders from the on-call psychiatrist. And as soon as those came through, she would bring me something. So I went back to my room. The temperature had come down enough to be bearable, and I laid down on that mattress and tried to sleep. And then the door opened. A staff member was showing a new patient his room. It was the man from the common area, the one I had felt in my spirit to stay away from. And he looked around that room with that same displeasure on his face. And then they both stepped back out, and panic came up in me like water. Understand where I was. 5 days with almost no sleep, no phone, no shoes, no Bible, frightened, confused, and now lying in the dark, waiting for a man I was afraid of to come back and sleep 3 feet away from me. And in that moment, the only thing I had left was one verse. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. I said it over and over. Psalm 23, verse 4. In all my exhaustion, it was all I had. It's all I could remember, and I kept praying it. And then the door opened again. I opened my eyes, and it was him. He walked a few steps toward my bed, staring at me with that same hard look on his face. Then he turned around and walked back out. I started praying that verse harder than I have ever prayed anything in my life. And I'll tell you exactly where my mind went, because I promised you honesty on this podcast. I pictured that man hurting me. I pictured him killing me. And the only comfort I could find, the only thing that steadied me at all, was the thought that if he did, I would open my eyes in the presence of Jesus. This is where I was, lying on a mattress in a behavioral health unit at 40 years old, making peace with dying, reciting the one verse I could remember. The door opened a third time. I opened my eyes, afraid of what I'd see. But it was the staff member, and she said something I did not expect at all. What's that smell? I hadn't noticed anything, but I sat up, and the moment I did, I could smell it too. Something burning. It had filled the whole room without me registering it. She said it must be the heating and cooling unit. And then she said, "Follow me. I'm moving your room." She walked me down to a different room. It was cooler, and there was already a roommate in there, an older gentleman, sound asleep. And I want you to understand, the moment I walked in, my spirit settled. Everything in me relaxed. I was safe. A little while later, Maria found me and brought me the sleep medication. And for the first time in almost a week, I slept for multiple hours. Before I end this podcast, I want to share something. God did not rescue me from the hospital. He rescued me into it. The word I got that afternoon wasn't, "I'll heal you where you sit." It was a question about why I wouldn't go. My obedience that day didn't look like a miracle. It looked like getting in a car with my friend and letting professionals take my shoes, my phone, and my Bible and start treating me. I had spent my whole life believing that needing that kind of help would mean something shameful about me. And what I found inside those walls was a room full of people who needed help and had stopped pretending otherwise. If you are where I was, if there is a part of you that would rather come apart quietly than let anyone see you go get help, I want you to hear a physician who's been through this personally say this. Getting help is not the failure. Refusing it is what almost cost me. Now, that was only the first night at Rogers. I spent 3 days and 3 nights at Rogers, and I walked in there believing I might be losing my mind, half convinced that everything I had experienced with God over the previous several weeks had been something my own broken brain manufactured. But what happened over the next 2 days undid that. Every single day in that place, I watched God move in me, around me, among those people, more and more clearly. I could not have arranged one bit of it. That's where I'll pick up next time. This is the For His Glory podcast. I'm Solomon, and even the valley, even the worst week of my life, even the parts I still don't understand, all of it is for His glory. If you're struggling, please reach out. The resources are in the description of this episode. Your story isn't over. God bless you.